For the longest time, I believed I was a good husband. My name is Richard, and I've always prided myself on being trusting, patient, and understanding. I never snooped through my wife's phone, never picked unnecessary fights, and always believed in giving people the benefit of the doubt. After all, that's what a good husband does, right? But looking back now, maybe I was just being blind. Vanessa, my wife, wasn't a bad person. But she had this habit of pushing limits, testing how far she could go before I reacted. Sometimes it was small things, going over budget on shopping or staying out later than planned. But other times it felt deliberate, like she was checking, to see if I would ever stand up for myself. And then there was Jake. I had known for years that he wasn't just a friend. He was her ex. And no matter how much time had passed, I knew men like Jake didn't just stick around for no reason. They wait. They linger. They pretend to be the nice guy until the right moment presents itself. I confronted Vanessa about him more than once. Every time she brushed it off with a laugh. "You're overthinking it, Richard. He's like a brother to me." The same lines, over and over. And I wanted to believe her. So I let it go, again and again, until the day she made it impossible to ignore. One evening, as we sat in the living room unwinding after dinner, she casually mentioned a weekend trip, a getaway with some of her old friends at a beach house in the Bahamas. It sounded harmless. I had no problem with her spending time with her friends. I had never been the controlling type. But then she dropped the bombshell. "Jake's going too." The moment she said his name, my stomach tightened. This wasn't just casual conversation. She was testing me, watching for my reaction. She expected me to object, to argue, to give her another reason to call me jealous and insecure. But this time I didn't give her that satisfaction. I didn't fight, I didn't plead, I didn't remind her of all the times I had let things slide. I just looked her in the eye and said 6 words that changed everything. "If you go, don't. Come back." She blinked, caught off guard, then let out a laugh. "God, Richard, you're so dramatic," she scoffed, rolling her eyes. And then came the usual excuses. "You're overreacting. Jake's just a friend. You need to stop being so insecure." I didn't argue. I simply repeated, "Do what you want." And I meant it. She thought I was bluffing, that I'd fume for a few days and then let it go. She had no idea how serious I was. The morning of her trip, Vanessa hummed to herself as she packed, occasionally glancing at me, waiting for a last-minute argument. I gave her nothing. When she wheeled her suitcase to the door, she pressed a quick kiss to my cheek like she always did. "Love you," she said lightly, as if my warning had never happened. Then she grabbed her keys and walked out. The moment the taxi disappeared down the street, I got to work. First, I changed the locks. I had already arranged for a locksmith the day before, and within the hour the house was secured. Next, I packed up all of her belongings, clothes, shoes, makeup, every last thing she owned, neatly boxed and ready to be delivered to her parents' house. I wanted to make sure she had no excuse to return. Then I made the final call, to my lawyer. By the time she came back, everything would be different. Vanessa had convinced herself that nothing would change when she got home. She thought she could go on this trip, laugh with her friends, spend time with Jake, and return to the life she left behind. She had no idea that the door she walked out of was one she'd never walk through again. On the 4th day, 3 days earlier than planned, I got an alert on my phone from the camera outside. Out of curiosity, I checked the feed. There she was, standing on the porch, bags at her feet, gripping the doorknob. She tried to turn it. It didn't budge, again and again. Then she stepped back, confusion clear on her face. She leaned in closer, studying the lock, and that's when it hit her. It had been changed. A few seconds later, my phone rang. I let it go to voicemail. Then it rang again. This time I answered. "Richard," she breathed, her voice already shaking. "The door won't open." "You don't live here anymore," I said, my tone calm and detached. "Your things are at your parents' house. Expect the divorce papers in a week or 2. Silence. I could hear her breathing, unsteady, like Reality was finally sinking in. She had played her game, and now she was finally facing the consequences. Vanessa's voice wavered, desperate. "Richard, please, just let me—" I hung up. Seconds later, my phone buzzed again. Once. Twice. Over and over. Her name flashed on the screen, but I ignored every call. After the sixth attempt, I put my phone on Do Not Disturb. I wasn't interested in whatever excuse she had this time. Then came the messages. "Richard, please talk to me. I messed up. I'm so sorry. It's not what it looks like." For the first time in months, my house was quiet, peaceful. The weight of her manipulation was gone, and I could finally breathe. But the betrayal still burned in the back of my mind. She thought I'd wait around like a fool, that I'd take her back, pretend nothing happened. She was wrong. Days passed and her messages stopped. But then, a knock at the door, too soon, too expected. I walked to the peephole. Vanessa stood outside, trembling, eyes bloodshot. She looked wrecked, nothing like the woman I once loved. For a second, I almost caved, almost let her back in. But then I remembered. The lies. The betrayal. The way she had discarded me so easily. I opened the door just enough to meet her gaze. "Richard, please," she whispered. "We need to talk." I stood firm, arms crossed. "No, Vanessa, we don't." Her face fell. "What do you mean? We can fix this." "You made your choice. Now live with it." She flinched, as if my words physically struck her, but she wasn't ready to give up. "Not yet." "Richard," she pleaded, her voice trembling, thick with desperation. "I made a mistake. I thought I needed something different, something new. I never meant to hurt you. I just needed to feel alive again. Can't you understand that?" I shook my head, my jaw tightening. "No, Vanessa. You didn't just make a mistake. You made a choice that shattered everything we had. And now you think you can just waltz back in like nothing happened? Like everything is fine?" I exhaled sharply. "I'm done. You're not welcome here anymore." Her eyes widened, flickering with shock. And something else. Fear, maybe. For so long she had controlled the narrative, convinced herself that I would always forgive, always take her back, but now she was beginning to realize the truth. I wasn't that man anymore. "You've changed," she whispered, her voice barely audible. "I thought—" She swallowed hard. "I thought you would forgive me." A bitter laugh escaped me, cold and hollow. "That's the problem, Vanessa. You never thought I'd stand up for myself. You never believed I'd say enough." I took a step back, gripping the door. "But I have. And I'm done." A long silence stretched between us. I could see the gears turning in her mind, calculating her next move. She still believed she could win me back, still clung to the illusion that her tears would soften me. But she was wrong. I had walked away from this marriage once. I wasn't about to walk back into it just to be broken again. I exhaled, steady and firm. "You don't get a second chance, Vanessa. Not with me. Not after what you did." Her face twisted, a storm of frustration and disbelief. She slammed her fist against the door. "This isn't fair. You can't just throw away everything we had. You can't do this to me." I met her gaze through the small crack in the door, my expression unwavering. "I didn't throw anything away, Vanessa. You did. You made your choice. And now you have to live with it." Her lips parted, her breath hitching. And for the first time, I saw it, the flicker of true regret in her eyes. But it wasn't enough. It would never be enough. Without another word, I closed the door, locked it. Her muffled sobs echoed from the other side, but they didn't touch me. The worst part was over. I had taken control, reclaimed my life, and I wasn't about to let her drag me back into the darkness. I turned, walking into the living room, my heart still racing, but not from anger, not from pain, from something else. Relief. The weight of her lies, her manipulation, her absence, all of it was gone. I was free. I sank onto the couch, letting the silence settle around me. But this time it wasn't suffocating. It was peaceful. I poured myself a drink, savoring the taste, letting the calm wash over me. And then, my phone buzzed. I didn't even need to look. I knew it was her. But this time, I didn't answer. She had already said enough. With a quiet exhale, I turned off my phone, watching as the screen faded to black. The past was behind me. The weight had been lifted. It was over. And now, it was time for me to live. For me, to find peace. To find freedom. Vanessa had made her choice. Now, it was my turn. In the end of this story, from the bottom of my heart, thank you. Your support, time, and kindness mean more than words can express. Whether it's big or small, every interaction makes a difference, and I truly appreciate you. Wishing you endless joy, success, and all the good things life has to offer. Stay amazing.